Hello, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Santiago. I'm from Spain, and I'm a security analyst working at Riskier. Today I'm going to talk to you about our research on fall injection on the automotive parts of the embedded security world. As you may know, there is a lot of automotive security stuff going on. Since 2014, I think, with Charlie Miller doing all this Jeep hack that was really hitting hard into the media, and also some Tesla hacks that were published some time ago. We can also speak about controlling devices on the Nissan or using the apps that were for Mitsubishi. Okay, so what does it mean? Hackers are getting interested into cars because every time cars are more and more electronics, and that's a good thing to do. So yeah, we have electronics on cars, and the bad guys are taking advantage of that. We can see this kind of stuff online, like a thing called mileage correction. It's more like, yeah, well, you know, I drove like 100,000 miles with my car by mistake. Can you please help me correct that? You can also have some counterfeit pieces for the aftermarket. So your fancy car can have actually counterfeit pieces because hackers are defeating the protections against installing non-official parts on cars. If you saw like, if you're aware around the car hacking news nowadays, most of the attacks are based on this part of the architecture. If we look into a car and all the different parts and services related around it, we can call it core cloud services. More like, yeah, you synchronize your car with a service online and you can see the mileage, you can see your fuel level, whatever. All the access. Here we're speaking about all the baseband and the access to the network from the car. The car gateway and network, there are a lot of hacks around this. I don't know if you know the Bicho or any other kind of attacks using the CAN bus directly. But there's not a lot going on the ECU, and even lower on the MCU installing this ECU. And that's where we're speaking now. At Riskier, we thought, so we have a lot of know-how on side channel analysis, and we have a lot of know-how in fall injection. So let's apply it to the automotive market. Let's start defining what is an ECU. So this ECU comes from electronic control unit, but this specifically is one that is in charge of the engine, injection, airflow, and all that. And in a generic way, an ECU is just made of a non-volatile memory. Communication interfaces, usually CAN, Flex, RAI. You have also automotive Ethernet. And then you have actuators and sensors that interact with the rest of the car and actuates and makes the thing that you want to do with your car. Then you have some RAM and then some microcontroller or processor linking all together. ECUs come in a lot of shapes, in a lot of forms. They do a lot of different things. And we, as researchers, as hackers, we have the duty of understand them. We have the duty of love them. So, this is me. This is my collection of ECUs on the lab. And specifically, this project is about one of these devices. It's called an instrument cluster. You can also call it a dashboard or the thing with the blinky lights. We chose it because we had one around and we thought it would be funny to mess with it. So yeah, as we said in the previous slide, the ECU architecture is not different from any other embedded system. So our path to break it or our path to compromise it comes over these steps. First, we need to understand the target. We need to know how it works, what it does, and then we try to identify vulnerabilities on it. Once we find vulnerabilities, we exploit them. But to understand the target and being on a black box fashion, what we usually use is the firmware. Because it's convenient. You have the firmware, it is easier to understand what is going on. ECUs are not standalone. They are connected on networks like this. This is a modern car network architecture. You can see here, this is a CAN gateway. Here is our target, the instrument cluster, but then you have all sorts of ECUs connected. These are the airbag systems, body control module with the lights, everything. And this looks really nice, you know, clean, tidy. But when you open the lid and give a look, you see the abysm. This is just a part of all the wiring diagram of a car. That document can have like 2,000 pages of this. Debugging and diagnosing a car is really hard. That's why clever people than me came up with diagnostic systems. And we're speaking here about Unified Diagnostic Services, from now on UDS. This is an ISO standard that is being built on almost every vehicle right now. And it describes different services for diagnostics, data transmission, and perform a security access check. So there are some different levels of privileges and a lot more of stuff. This is a list of different services specified in UDS. You can see that there are a little bit of everything. You can establish diagnosticization. You can see the travel codes. You can read data like the, I don't know, revolutions of the engine, stuff like that. It's like a diagnostic and tracking services. And then if we give a look, we have some of them. Are you fine? We can see some of them that are really interesting from a security point of view. ReadMemoryByAddress is a service that allows you to retrieve the memory content of a physical address. This four here, request, download, upload, data, and transfer and exit, these four are part of the ECU firmware upgrade flow, which is also interesting. If we want to extract the firmware, remember, we need something here like this. The thing is, these services are somehow protected by security access. So security access is a way that the, let's call it tester, here is set as client, but the tester has to authenticate in order to get access to these other services that are more compromising, for saying. This service has a challenge response fashion in a way that the client or the tester, let's call it us, we request a seed, and the ECU generates the seed and calculates the response that here is stated as key, and the standard is also called a key, but it's kind of confusing. But at the end is that we request a seed, the seed is generated, the ECU calculates a local key with that seed, and sends the same seed that was generated. On our end, we should calculate the same key using the same algorithm and send the key back. Here, the ECU will check that the calculated key is the same as the received. And if it's the same, you get access granted. Okay, here comes the big problem. UDS does not give any kind of implementation details or recommendations. They just tell you, just follow this. Security access should behave like this, but there's no other detail. What happens with that? Bad coding practices. And, manufacturers sometimes make errors. And let's try to find out what can go wrong here. I don't have them here. They are on my backpack out. But I got 3 boards that Riskier developed for doing a hardware CTF. They are called Riscurinos from the RHIME 3. I don't know if you're aware. I'm willing to give them away to the people that can tell me what can go wrong here before I change the slide. On this topic, there are no logical flaws, there are no buffer overflows, there are no smashing stacks or nothing. It's just what can go wrong in this here if you got a bad design. Replay attacks. Like what? Okay, but if you get a different seed, the replay is not the same. So you cannot get it. But good one. Over there. Okay, that's one of the things. The key calculation algorithm being weak. You got a board. Over there. The key verification. I like that one. We will speak about that. You can have one of the boards, you say? That's another one. The key space is too short, so you can just brute force. Another board. There are no more boards, sorry, but we can keep going. Okay, yeah. That's another issue. Okay. No, that's too complicated. It's easier than that. So I will just skip now, and you can see what we came with. I don't know if you agree with this, but this is all that can go wrong with this thing if you don't specify anything. We can start with the seed generation. You said something related to replace, so you could actually do a replay if you alter the random number generation. So you can do replace here. The POR algorithm, I don't know who mentioned that. Please look me afterwards so you can have the board. If the algorithm is POR, like, yeah, the key is just the seed plus 1. Come on. That's easy. Small key space. If it's not really a lot of bytes, you can brute force it. Key calculation. You were speaking about leakage, but we are speaking about disclosure. If there is a disclosure of the algorithm, all the security here is just this pre-shared secret, which is the algorithm. If it's compromised, if it's disclosed, the security is gone. Key verification. We were speaking about something about hitting and jumping. We will speak about that. But the problem is that there is no try limit, so you can still perform some brute force. And also, well, this is not that important, but you can have security access, but the standard doesn't specify what kind of services do you protect with this. So you don't actually need to protect anything if you don't want to. And you can still get your, I don't know, stamp of saying, yeah, UDS compliant. So yeah. For this, we have some mitigations. We can apply secure coding practices, as always. Use a big space key and some big space for the seed and the key. Use a try limit, so you cannot brute force. We can use unique keys. That adds a lot of value, because at the end, if you disclose the algorithm, it's going to work for every device that uses the same algorithm. But if we change to a scheme using unique devices, like unique keys per device, it's going to be better. Then this is a mitigation around the seed entropy, using algorithms that are strong and proven. And also another solution is using online calculation for the challenge response. So now cars are connected to internet. It's really most of the cars are connected. So you could decide to, okay, I want to authenticate, so you need to do the calculations on a server, and then there is nothing going on the car. So it's more secure. Question. Do you think this is enough? Are these enough mitigations? Is everything here is solved if I use this? Nope. Because we still have hardware attacks around this. We can use side channel analysis for disclosing or leaking the things that are going on, for transforming the seed into the key. And also, over there, you can use fault injection to skip the key verification. I'm leaving the side channel analysis for people more smart than me. And I'm focusing on fault injection, and that's this talk. So we're going to now get a brief introduction into fault injection. Fault injection parts from the idea of the components having a safe operation parameters. So you have a range of voltage that you can apply, and then you have a range of clock speed and also the parameters like temperature and, I don't know, atmospheric pressure, I don't know. But there are several parameters that you need to fulfill for the device to work properly. But what happens if you go out of this stuff? What happens if you go around? So, if we're speaking about voltage, I will introduce you to the world of voltage glitching. We can do overvolting. That means going with the voltage higher than specified. We are going out of the safe operating area by increasing the voltage. But one of the results is that if you overvolt for a long time, you burn the device. On the other hand, you can do the opposite. You can undervolt. You can put the voltage lower than the specified, and then get your undervolting. The thing is, most probably, if you do it for some time, the device will just power off. What we want for doing voltage glitching is doing it on an instant and in a controlled way. So if we want to do overvolting glitching, we just go with the current voltage, functional one, and then inject a glitch by overvoltaging, but then going back to the proper voltage. And the equivalent, but with undervoltage. Usually we do undervoltage, okay? So, for doing this, we have different tools. We have open source tools, like the Chip Whisperer. Hello, Colin. I don't know if he's here. He was really busy out, but hello. And we have also commercial solutions like Inspectorify, sold by my company Riskier, that if you're interested, you can just go to the website. So, what happens when we glitch? Things go wrong. You're trusting your reliable clock source. You're relying on a stable power supply. But what if this get compromised? Well, here be dragons. There are a lot of things that could happen when we glitch. This is called fault modeling, and it's just like a discipline on its own, studying how the faults affected the target, because there are a lot of things that could happen. And let's see. For example, you can flip bits. During injecting a glitch on a device, you can flip bits on registers, and from both sides, from 0 to 1, 1 to 0. You can also prevent the read and write of registers on memory by glitching the pipeline flow. You can skip instructions as a like a derivative of preventing reading. So if you prevent reading and you're reading an instruction, you're fetching, you can skip an instruction, and this is really useful. And you can also disable modules, maybe flipping a bit on the configuration register or something. But there is another thing that could happen if you inject glitches, and is that you destroy your chip. And that happens more than you think. Okay, so we have someone on the bottom saying, yeah, we have the key verification. Let's try to glitch it so we are authenticated. If we are following our flow here and we reach the key verification step here, that will look something like this. The received key is the one that I'm sending here. The expected key is the one that the ECU calculated here. So the only thing is going on is comparing, and if not the same, you're not authenticated. Else, you're authenticated. So we could just glitch, right? We said, okay, we can skip instructions. Let's skip this one. Nope. It happens to be that mitigation works, and there is a mitigation suggested on the UDS standard saying that some time delay may be required for the security access service. So if after a defined number of false atoms, after a number of false atoms, you can trigger like a timeout. So some time needs to pass until your next authentication attempt. On our target, it was 10 minutes every 3 false atoms. And that's a lot. Because if you want to do a file and you need to characterize the device or do whatever, every 3 atoms, you need to wait 10 minutes. It's going to take too long. So this mitigation really mitigates FI attacks. But hey, we have more services. If you remember, we have this ReadMemoryByAddress. And here, this service is really easy. The client sends a frame saying, hey, give me, 100 bytes from this address. And then the ECU checks your security level. And it looks something like that. There is a variable, something called authenticated, meaning if you passed or not the security access before. And here we're checking if you're authenticated. You're not authenticated, access denied. If you're authenticated, access granted. Here, we could actually glitch here, right? Yeah, here we can. There is no nope. The good thing here also is that there is no attempt limit. You can try this as much as you want. If you're not authenticated, the only thing is the ECU is going to return you a negative response. So what we do is preparing a full injection setup and try to glitch this service. The full injection scheme is something like this. I am really sorry that I couldn't bring the setup here and do a live demo. I have a video that I can show you now. But before going to the video, we can go a little bit through this. We have our computer that is connected to the Spider. Spider is a commercial name that we have for FPGA-based glitching device. This Spider is doing voltage glitching over a VCC line to the target and also controlling the reset. So every time that we try to glitch, we reset as well. And then the triggering and the target communication is using this Huracan. Huracan is also a commercial name that we have for a tool that is like a CAN adapter that also has trigger functionalities and also fuzzing and man in the middle in CAN networks. You can check it out. It's really interesting on our website. The setup looks something like this. So this is a Spider. This down here is the Huracan. This was one of the first versions. This is just an oscilloscope, but this is a glitch amplifier that is required for doing the voltage glitching most of the times. And this is our target with all the blinky lights and everything. And by the way, this is more like the setup that our sales people make. Ours looks more like this. We love our lab. We like it nasty and full of cables. So if you want, I can show you now the video maybe. So here's the computer. There's no, and here we are running the software that controls the glitching device and also the Eurocam for communicating. The workflow is really simple. We first send the request for the memory, and after that command, the Eurocam sends a trigger line. So the spider is ready for glitching depending on our parameters. You can see here it's running and it does several attempts per second. Red means success glitch and green means back glitch. This is the Eurocam, so it has two different CAN interfaces. So you can do like man in the middle, connecting your target here and the rest of the network here. And you can control the traffic that goes from one side to the other. You can also power the target with this, and has also some null resistor for terminating the CAN bus. You can use it or not. And this is the trigger line that goes from the Eurocam to the spider. Spider is connected here. Here is receiving, here is receiving the, in a minute. Yeah, here is receiving the trigger from the Eurocam. And then the spider is connected to the glitch amplifier directly to the target. The target only has this kind of connections. It's just CAN high, CAN low, main voltage, and ground. And then from here, we have this line that goes to the glitch amplifier, is providing directly the voltage for the MCU. This power supplies for the rest of the ECU. So here we're controlling the core MCU voltage, and this is the reset line. There are no further modifications on the ECU. You could install it back again to the car, but I wouldn't do it. And that's all. So going back to our presentation. Shit. Let's go through it. This is like a... So sorry. Do you want a joke or something? We're almost there. Okay, so that was the setup. It's more like this. And then for fall injection, we need to define the parameters. So we're glitching a voltage glitch, and we are doing under voltage. There are three different parameters that we need for our glitching campaign. One is the delay. Glitch delay is the time from trigger to the actual glitch, would be this time. This is a digital oscilloscope capture. This is time, voltage, different signals, okay? So glitch delay is the time from trigger to the glitch. Obviously here, our glitch delay should be from this to this, because we are sending the command, and the authentication verification takes place here before the response. So we should glitch somewhere around here. Then we have the glitch duration. If we zoom this glitch here, okay, we have the glitch has a certain width. We can control that. And that depends on how sensible the target is to glitches. We need a wider or a shorter glitch, and also the voltage. If we go with a more negative voltage or less negative voltage. So for finding the right parameters, what we do is randomize. It's just free for all. We just set some windows that, according to our experience and other things, like I said, for the glitch delay, we define this time window. For the glitch duration of voltage, we also have some values that the experience teaches how to proceed. And you just leave it for, I don't know, a couple of days running. And then you get something like this. I don't know if any of you is familiar with this kind of plots, but for fall injection are really useful. In this plot, every dot is a glitching attempt, and the color is what is the result of the attempt. So in red, we are putting the expected result, like meaning that the glitch didn't have any kind of effect on the target. On yellow, we have the mute. Usually, if you glitch too hard, the device reboots. and you don't have any kind of response from it. But then we have these little red pills, which are the success. There is something that is not the usual response or a mute, and are also like the expected result that we have when we want a glitch. So what we got here is that there is a relationship between the voltage and the duration. Here is, and some parts there are even a linear relation, so you can use that for trimming. We start with random parameters, randomizing them with really huge limits from you see here, from 0 voltage to 0 volts to 2 volts. But then you see that every atom higher than 150 is not doing anything. And any lower than 050, there is nothing interesting here. So you start trimming. I start doing from here to here, and the duration the same. You get your relationship, and then you can define an area in terms of voltage and duration that gets a higher success rate. These plots are really useful. But then we have so we had 3 parameters, remember. Voltage, duration, and we'll also have the glitch delay. What happens with the glitch delay? Why can't we get 100% success rate? Just one word, jitter. As we said, we have our command, there is a response, and there is some time in between that you need to glitch. But the thing is, the ECU is built on top of some real-time operating system or other application that has a scheduler. And the thing is that the response may come in at different moments from the trigger. There's not a fixed time from your command and the response. And that makes it really hard, because it's like shooting to a moving target. The response can end up here or here, and maybe the glitch point is not here now, it's here or maybe here, depending on when the response comes. But for causality things, you cannot predict when it's coming, so that makes it harder, and that's why you still need the randomization. You cannot fix the parameters and get 100% success rate with this kind of complex targets. I think this is blank because I was putting here the video, but you can stare at the infinite. Okay, so wrapping up a little bit, we could we were successful on this attack. There are some highlights that I want to present you. This attack we performed them, and they were working on different ECUs. Each of them designed around a different MCU, so it's independent of the hardware that you're using. Then we also use different FI techniques. Here I explained to you voltage glitching, but we were also using EMFI, using EM pulses for injecting faults, and that was also working. It was really with more or less the same success rate. Then, depending on the target, each ECU implements the ReadMemoryByAddress service in a different way. And we had some targets that the maximum chunk of memory that you can ask for was maybe 100 bytes, but then another one was only 40 bytes or something like that. So that is also a difference on the implementation, because, again, UDS doesn't specify what kind of parameters you should accept. It's up to the manufacturer. And then, as a result, we could extract the complete firmware in order of days in all the targets. It will be more or less depending on the device, because each MCU had a different memory content, memory sizes on the internal memory. And this kind of attacks, and that's why we want to stress here, has consequences. Most of the people say that FI is hard to scale. I get it. You cannot go to a car and, starting glitching directly to the car and then run on it. It's not feasible. You need a lab. You need time. But the consequences, the things that you can get from this FI attack has this kind of consequences. You can get IP stealing. Automotive manufacturers are really worried about this because you're spending a lot of money and time, resources for getting your IP working, like your ABS algorithm or your control loops made on software. That costs money, that costs time. And if I'm a competitor, I can just extract your firmware and steal it. We can speak about attack escalation, but it's not on the next slide. I'm more thinking about firmware modification. You can modify the firmware. Remember when I showed you the table with services, there is another one called ReadMemoryByAddress. I don't know if you can imagine what you can do with that. You can write on any physical address. So you can patch the firmware, you can write into ROM, and then get some code execution, and you can do a lot of nasty stuff with this. You can do sabotage, you can do tuning, you can do whatever. And on the attack escalation part, if we get the firmware and we got it reversed, we can find exploits on that firmware. We can also extract the secrets contained on that firmware, like this UDS security access algorithm that we were talking about. You can extract it. You can extract the keys used for the firmware upgrades that usually come encrypted. And all this, furthermore, can be distributed. You can distribute the firmware. I can do all the FI and then give the firmware to some Russian forum for them to reverse. The secrets can also be distributed. Vulnerabilities and exploits, you can also distribute them. And that's dangerous. And if we wrap up, we're here to say that UDS is vulnerable. It's not that UDS is vulnerable, but the implementations of UDS are not really good. Because they lack, for example, from our perspective as attackers interested or proficient in FI techniques, there are no resistant hardware or software in automotive. We saw that just the security access description has also some flaws. As we were saying, all this key space is not specified, so they don't encourage security on the standard. And then fault injection is relevant for automotive. It's available to the masses. You can glitch with open source tools like Chip Whisperer, or if you're a more committed attacker and you need, you can get more professional tools and just glitch the shit out of the ECUs. Fault injection messes with your security on software. You think everything is secure because you don't have logical flaws and all that, but fault injection can defeat that. You can inject faults and you can get the firmware out of the thing that was designed for not getting the firmware out. So check out. As we said, it's not affecting just an ECU. It's a thing that is shared among different ECUs, and we did this attack on different models running UDS. And also, as we discussed, we can escalate the attacks from the FI. Last but not least, I want to thank my colleagues Nick, Alisa, and Ramiro for giving me a hand with these slides and the talk and everything else. I can share this, and we have some white papers around all this that you can check. And that's all. If you have any questions, or I'm here to answer. Just a thing, the longer it takes, the longer the picture stays.
Oh, we already have one question.
Hi, yeah, when we look at the smart card code, like for instance, verifying a pin, which is a very simple thing, looks extremely ugly when it becomes fault resistant. Because, we have to consider a number of faults in there, so there are a lot of things happening. So how can we, do you see how we can extend this kind of protection to
Are we speaking?
Very complex software, like.
Okay, we're speaking on software.
Yeah. On the. What's the impact of protecting, from your point of view, for protecting against these attacks on, I would say, complex firmware like you can find in ECUs?
Well, the thing is that actually the software running on the ECU is more different tasks. That's what they use a real-time operating system. They have the different tasks that they need to perform, and there are some critical that they need to be really fast. But then there are others that even though you add your protection and mitigations, the performance doesn't get affected. There are a lot of techniques for protecting software against fault injection, like doing volatile checks and double checks, doing checking the loop variables when you finish the loop, things like that. If you start thinking about how many instructions you can skip, you can build around that, you can build new checks. And if you check that something is going wrong, you can reset or do something about that. So yeah, you can actually implement countermeasures, but I agree that they don't look nice when you see the code.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
Next question.
It's because of the picture. I can take it off.
They want it gone. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your talk.
Thank you.